are, Bob.
All right. I know who we are. I'm going to tell you who we are. This is the Wild Bob and Ronnie multimedia broadcast coming to you from Lafayette, Tennessee, US of A. And we're proud to be here to let you know that we're still keeping up our vigil, that we're watching everything that goes on, and we're trying to relay it to you and let you know what's happening to you.
I got to make a K-Town run today. I
want to welcome R.L. Henson. Over here is the master of our mischief, Ronnie Sharp. And we're just pleased to be with you here on July the 5th, 2014.
Except it's August over here on this side of the table.
It's August instead of, yeah.
Well, we were here July the 5th also, folks. August the 5th, 2014.
I hope you didn't shoot all your firecrackers yesterday.
Right.
He just used something there that we used to say back in the sticks. Says, who put you up to it?
Yeah.
Right. I just wondered
who put you up to it?
If somebody's going to start selling tickets to watch the Western Glacier break off from Antarctica.
Well, I don't know. You think they might?
Well, I don't know. You know, it's predicted that this will happen in 428 years.
We could sell a lot of tickets in 428 years.
That'd give us a lot of time, but we could really get some momentum going.
I noticed that they announced that Union County had got a $45,000 or thereabouts grant to install some solar panels on one of the buildings over there. And it was such a tremendous thing. And what I can't figure out is that not tax money too? And is it not just pouring more money down a hole? And by the way, why do you have to subsidize solar energy? I thought it was better than sliced bread. You didn't have to.
And it's so cheap. The sun's shining out there all the time.
Now I hear this commercial all the time where the Sierra Club is wanting to get on the TDA not to replace their coal-fired plants with natural gas. We're going to go solar and wind and pie in the sky and water that runs uphill and all them things.
Right. I'm not going to make any friends by this suggestion I'm getting ready to make. But you could equip a big gymnasium with exercise bikes.
Yeah.
And put a little generator on them, and you could find enough fat people to go up and pedal them bikes that would produce more energy than this solar panel.
Which reminds me of another commercial I hear all the time. They read this public service announcement, and I've heard it, I bet you 50 times without exaggerating. They say, unfortunately, the children growing up in this area are not expected to live as long as their parents. And I go along with that. Then they say, and one of the reasons is childhood hunger, and I totally disagree with that, because the reason that they're not going to live to be as old as their parents is they sit on their fat rear ends and weigh 450 pounds. They eat too much. They're not hungry.
But I was just reading today, I believe in this magazine here, that the real problem of obesity is not eating but no exercise.
Well, you can live on Mountain Dews and watch television and play video games all the time and fatten up anything.
Yeah.
And they say that 1 in 5 children have known hunger. I'd say everybody's known hunger. I've been hungry a lot of times, but it wasn't because I couldn't get anything. It was because I either didn't want to fix it or didn't want to fool with it or was too sleepy to eat. I've gone to bed hungry.
Well, we didn't eat until we were hungry at our house. You know, you were supposed to be hungry at mealtime.
Yeah.
But now they want a baby even looks like he might want to take a breath on his own, and they stick something in his mouth, you know, and feed him.
Well, they also, the way they score hunger in the United States, they do a survey and they ask children if they have ever gone to bed hungry. Of course, several of them are going to say, yes, I've gone to bed hungry. You have, we all have. But they don't go into the details about were you hungry because you just couldn't get anything, and there are some who can't. I'd go along with that, but it's not from
Very few.
well, no, wait a minute. It's not from lack of resources. It's from lack of will. Mom and Daddy don't take care of their young'uns and waste their money on other stuff. But you can't just keep giving somebody money to throw away. How many people do you know of who sell food stamps or buy Mountain Dews and sell them high price and spend the money and then go to the food bank and get their food?
I saw a woman yesterday afternoon who had 4 of the prettiest little children. They were pretty. Well, they moved. Some of their neighbors said that the kids never had anything to eat and that they continuously fed them. I do know that that family got over $1,000 a month in food stamps. There was 6 of them. And, of course, the daddy, I think, weighed like about 410 pounds. Mama was fairly trim. But they eventually lost those kids. Social services took them because they did not look after them.
Well, I was in Miami for a week, and I've told you this story, but I never have told it on here. And I walked over to Winn-Dixie a lot, mostly just for something to do. And I'd buy me something to drink or something to snack on or something to go home and cook. And I got behind several people there in line at the supermarket paying for their food, and it's a Cuban enclave. Just about everybody there speaks Spanish, and it's Cubans. It's a middle-class neighborhood. It's not, I mean, it's actually pretty nice, but it's mostly Cubans, and English is a foreign language there. But I never got behind anybody and saw them pay for their food with food stamps. I never saw any food stamps the whole time I was down there.
All right. Well, if you want to see some people pay for food with food stamps, just stand down at Save-A-Lot.
All you got to do
or IGA.
Yeah.
I mean,
and get behind the biggest basket you can find, and it's about a sure bet.
Yeah, they eat far better than I do. I've never drawn a food stamp in my life, never intend to.
Gentlemen, have you ever?
I think we're fools for not doing it.
In this country, when was the last time you heard of somebody actually succumbing or dying from starvation in this country?
Unless they were sick or tied up.
Yeah, something like that, restrained or something like that. But I'm talking about natural course of living. I haven't heard it. And
if you're in your right mind and able to move around or to communicate, you cannot starve to death in this country.
No.
People
and in this community right here, right now, I'll bet you that you could get a pickup load of free garden stuff if people knew you'd come and pick it and take care of it and appreciate it.
Absolutely, they'd give it to you.
Yes, sir.
Just, but we're in the society we have built around us. It's hard to explain what it is. We don't ever look at the aspects that go a little deeper into things. What y'all are talking about, like, well, let me spin this thing off another way. I hear people saying minimum wage. We need minimum wage. And I think I read an article the other day that the Supreme Court's trying to raise the minimum wage for McDonald's, just McDonald's.
Supreme Court?
Yeah, this what they're trying to do. McDonald's is a conglomerate of franchises, and they're trying to bring them into where they rule them as one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of I don't know exactly how to explain all of it, but where the labor relations deals with one unit rather than all the franchises. And we haven't seen it here local, but there's a lot of demonstrations going on to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour for quick food.
I challenge you to find anybody, and I'm not talking about in the food industry, because around here this is not a high pay area anyway. But that's the only place you can get a job is minimum wage. But I'll challenge you to find anybody with any skills whatsoever that you can hire and depend on at minimum wage. You can't hire people at minimum wage.
This is the point I was going to try to make. Personally, what we call a minimum wage is just a number that the government has decided to place out here. But what's considered to be a prevailing or livable wage is a different thing than what the minimum wage is. But what we refer to as
The
minimum
living wage is a term that they use to encourage you to let the government set the.
That is correct. But let me show you where the hidden part of this thing is. Minimum wage is useless. It does not mean anything. Here's the reason.
Puts people out of jobs.
Well, here let me explain this to you. We have 55% of the nation that is receiving some sort of national benefit from the government. All right? The government, let's say the government goes out here and pays a person $10 an hour to stay home. All right? They've already set the minimum wage at $10 an hour because you got to pay this person $15 an hour to get them to leave the house.
Well, another thing, they're giving Walmart a hard time. They say they need to get rid of these minimum wage workers because the taxpayers are subsidizing them with all this sure help. Well, the thing about it is, if they do get Walmart to raise their wages, they ain't gonna cut none of that other stuff out.
No. The people working don't look far enough deeper into this thing. They think, oh boy, let's raise that minimum wage. They don't look, and now a lot of them do, that whatever they go to buy is going to increase far more than what they're going to increase the minimum wage. And the only one's going to profit by it is sales tax. The states are going to profit. If you're buying an item for $1 and they raise it to $3 and they raise your wages to match it, then the state's going to receive taxes on the $3. But anyhow, the government sets minimum wage not by what we call minimum wage. They set the minimum wage by the amount of benefits that they award or give to the citizens. And if they will guarantee you $10 to sit on your whatever at house, anybody here goes to hire you, now I'm not talking about everybody, there's some people that would work for $4 an hour before they'd take $6 handed to them. That's the people who have got integrity and whatever else. But we decided back a few years ago, I believe it was under Bill Clinton and a couple others or whatever, that we were going to compete in the world market. And we are. We're out here in the world market is kicking our royal behinds.
Well, I really think that they ought to raise the minimum wage. And you think I'm joking, but I'm serious. I think they ought to raise the minimum wage to $100 an hour.
I see where you're coming from.
And
absolutely.
that way we'd see people would get educated on just how stupid it is for let somebody that has no skin in the game set the rates. Because it'll fall flat on its face in a hurry instead of doing it gradually.
Instead of having the government do these things for us, let's say that you want to hire me for $2 or whatever or to do a job and I agree to do it, that's fine.
Yeah.
The guy down the road offers me $5 an hour, you'll either have to match it or I'll go somewhere else.
I think wages on average would actually go up if they get rid of the minimum wage.
You've got a good
Because you'd
good
find
fact.
the people who would work and they would say, look, I can get more, I'll actually work and show up and not steal from you. And these other people, they would be competing with people that actually wanted to work. I really think it would, if they did away with minimum wage, it would actually help.
There's a good possibility because
nowadays, if you hire somebody and you tell them, say, look, I'll give you $250 a week. And they say, that's good, says, I'll take $250 a week.
So
you give them $250 and they take $250, they're making $500 a week.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I absolutely do. The people that have not been in business or tried to run a business has no understanding. Whenever they say you have to pay what a person's worth, what a person, an employee, someone working has got to earn you far in excess of what you pay them in order to pay for all the paperwork and the government issues and everything.
What they break and steal and run off.
Oh, Lord. I know what you're talking about there.
Generally speaking, an employee in a retail business must earn you twice his salary for you to justify hiring him as far as the economics go.
That's a good point right there.
Now, there's one other benefit. Your business can't grow if you've only got one person doing the work of 25. So in order to make your business bigger, you may have to have more people. But they're not really earning you anything. They're just allowing you to increase your exposure. I just don't.
Well, anyhow,
I don't hire anybody for anything. I'm just self-employed nobody.
If you could take away Now, competition will set the price of a product. I don't care what it is that you're selling or whatever, whether it's a service or a product. The customer out here will set the price pretty much because whoever's the most competitive or performs the best service and the best product, even if the product's a little more expensive, a lot of people understand this. And that's what the free market system is all about. And really, free market is kind of a cruel system of doing things. As far as it's a law of survival,
If
what
you
it
have
is.
if you have a true free market economy,
Right.
yeah.
But it will work.
Oh,
A
sure.
free market. This
Sure.
country started that way after they had their fiasco with the colonists when they first set up and they was going to be socialist, and that didn't work. But we're working our way, and we're so deep into socialism that it's not even funny, and we don't call it by that. We call it by all kinds of different other names.
Right.
But it is socialism if you look at the bottom of it.
Very, very true.
And
But let me tell you something that's changed from the time I first entered the labor market and started really realizing the cost of things. You know, I had to make my own way. Back years ago, if you came out with a product that became very popular, or you could make more of it, you would sell it cheaper.
right.
Today, though, if you come out with a product that becomes very popular, they'll raise the price because of its popularity and make more money off of it.
For the short term.
Huh?
For the short term.
Well, yeah,
That's
they'll
what we're
ride
interested
it
in,
as long
short
as
term.
it'll ride, you know. I can see it down there at the grocery store. You take, I buy word cheapest, you know.
Right.
You take in the case of Clorox. For a long time, Family Dollar had the cheapest Clorox. They were there for somewhere around $1.19 a gallon. Then they went to a 3-quart
Oh, they cut the
container
yeah.
and raised the price a little bit. Then Save-A-Lot became the cheapest 3-quart dispenser of Clorox at $1.29. Family Dollar went to $1.69 and is now at $1.64, and the Save-A-Lot has gone from where they were to $1.59 a gallon. And all of this, as their particular product becomes more popular, they raise the price.
Mm-hmm. Well, these items I'm not familiar with, a lot of this stuff. My wife does shopping. I'll tell you what, I can tell you a little experience I had. My wife had back surgery, and I hadn't been shopping. I take my wife and whatever, but I never went shopping. She always took care of everything. And so when she was not able to go, I got a shock. I was sent to the grocery store to do the shopping. Hadn't been in a grocery store in like 30 years. And I got sticker shocked all right. I could not believe what a gallon of milk and a dozen eggs and things like that cost. But now, everything affects everything. In our line of food, the food chain, the government has, I looked every once in a while now, like a cut of beef or some of the pork and stuff is running as high as $9 or almost $10 a pound. Some of the higher cut stuff. I don't say anyone affords it, but anyhow, there has been a law passed back, it's probably been a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. It may have been even under Bush's administration, the second Bush. But anyhow, there's a law out there that says that a percentage, and I believe it's 40% of all the corn that we raise in this country has to be used for the production of ethanol. All right, if you take 40% of the corn out of the food supply, not only does that's going to jack the price plumb out of sight, and not only that, it's going to affect the foreign markets. a lot of people, oodles of them, depend on us for corn products. And I think this was not a good thing. I think if ethanol is a competitive source of energy and fuel, then let it stand on its own. This is where the government is getting into things that they're not feasible. And if they were feasible, the research would have been out there a long time ago. It's just like on ethanol. If it was feasible to produce gasoline from ethanol or from corn, it would have been done years ago. It was feasible to make moonshine out of it, to make alcohol for drinking and consumption, because it would pay. Your profit and your turnaround was good enough that you could make a profit off of it. Ethanol, if it wasn't being backed up by the government, the same thing with solar panels, and I'm sure wind power is the same way. These generators that are all being put out here are being subsidized by the taxpayers.
Oh, sure.
And I read stuff that makes no sense whatsoever.
Basic research has a place in community sponsorship. Now that can be the government or it can be something else. What I mean by that, you're not going to get a lot of people to go out here and study, and this is just made up, but study pond slime. But if you understand pond slime, you may understand how to cure cancer. Now that's a basic research, and that's usually carried on to the universities.
Right.
And I can see some community sponsorship, whether that be somebody that supports the university or whether it's government. But when you start having government pick what's going to dominate the field, the new industry, then for instance, we couldn't have gone to the moon at the time we did had we not had government sponsorship, and it's not likely that we would have had private enterprise to sponsor it, although they are now.
Mm-hmm.
But just look at the things that fell out of that program. Now there's some benefits to that, but they didn't go out there and say we've decided we're going to determine that we're not going to use this type of rocket, we're going to use this one, and we're going to use wind power to power. They didn't pick the winners and losers. They just said go out there and build it, and we'll waste a whole lot of money, but we'll get it done.
The moon project, I could elaborate on it. I've got a few opinions of it, I don't think too many people agree with my opinion on that. But anyhow, we'll discuss that one of these days if we ever have something funny to talk about.
We don't usually run out of anything to talk about.
If solar power, solar energy was feasible, we have national labs, several of them around this country, that experiment with everything from the sun of how much water a tree will produce or how much oxygen. They put a tin over it and see how much it'll produce and how much water it'll absorb. We study everything under the sun. And solar panels as well. Our national laboratories have studied solar energy. That's how these satellites are powered and whatever else. But at a cost it's not feasible to produce that type of solar panel to use here. If it was...
Well, there's a theory that power companies and everything fight this solar energy because ain't nobody sending them a bill. Let me tell you, if it will pay for itself, it'll run on its own. You don't have to subsidize it.
That is correct. I've heard that nuclear energy is the cheapest thing going.
It would be if we had a little common sense on how to do it. But whenever you go out there and tell people you're going to have to build it this way, and we're going to have to do all these safeguards and go through all these regulatory things and get about 14 people to do the job of one, that's what it costs. It don't cost much after you get it going. It's after it's getting the thing built.
There's one, they're fixing to take one down out on the west coast in California. Have you heard about that one? They're fixing to dismantle one of their nuclear plants out there, the generating plant. It's going to cost, if I'm not mistaken, it was $8 billion to disassemble it, and it's going to take 20 years to do it. Now, whenever you're figuring the kilowatt hour to produce nuclear power, is this figured into that kilowatt hour when they don't even know what it's...
Probably not, but now we're using technology that should never been used. We've learned back 50 years ago how to build a plant that didn't require all that stuff. We could use pebble bed reactors, and there's another, I don't even remember what it's called, another technology that uses, it's like this. You don't need a containment vessel, and if it melts down, it shuts off, and that's it.
Okay. Why is this not being done? Now, I've tried to do some research on what you're saying.
Regulations. You can't get people to change things with common sense and scientific arguments. You've got to go through the bureaucracy. And they had okay, let me tell you. I'll get you some information on that.
Okay.
Richard Nixon had a whole lot to do with the reason that we went with the technology that we did when they were determining which way to go on some nuclear power plants. The fact that they could get their the base of the technology would be in California. Nixon swayed the program in that direction.
Okay.
And that meant that we abandoned something that would work more better, more
Efficiently or safer?
more safer, and reliably, and went in favor of something that worked, but more expensive, much more expensive in the long run, and throws it back to a California industry, California-based industry.
In other words, politics figured into the thing considerably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's if you keep up, which I try to read everything that I can find coming out of Oak Ridge, where they disassembled or took down the K-25 plant. They had a runoff, and this is one of the latest things that I found out down there. And this runoff had tritium in it, and it went into the water system and ran through their treatment plant. This was on, I can think of the creek here in a few minutes, Upper something another creek. But anyhow,
it all went in the melting reservoir, didn't it?
well,
Melting.
it's water soluble, this stuff is.
Huh.
Okay? They had facilities or means by which to test for alpha radiation, but not beta. And I don't know how they caught this thing. But anyhow, certain percentages of this in their treatment plant came up into the sludge on top of the water. It got, whenever it was turned up somehow and the sludge comes up, this tritium came up into the sludge. Well, when they detected it, they found out that they was going to have to pull this sludge off. Okay? This sludge is half-life is 144,000 years on tritium. It's one of the hottest or most dangerous things there is.
The longer the half-life is, the less radioactive it is.
Is that right?
Yeah, because it deteriorates slowly.
Okay. Now, okay, Oak Ridge can incinerate waste
Incinerator.
waste fuel. They're shipping it in here on the East Coast. It's being brought in to Oak Ridge, being incinerated. Now, what's left over, the ash part, is supposed to go back to the host country from which it came from. And my understanding is that once it's sent here, like if France sends us a load of it and we do away with it, they don't want the ash back. They're going to leave it, be generous with it. But if this stuff, like you're saying, why did they not incinerate it right there at Oak Ridge? Because here's what they did. The first load of it, I believe, was 5,000 gallons. They loaded it and took it to a facility in Washington State. Now, they paid like $1 million to get rid of 5,000 gallons of it. So I wonder why they didn't incinerate it or do away with it or deal with it at Oak Ridge.
And right there now, did you say they discovered this stuff that was getting into the water supply?
It was in the runoff that came out of the K-25 site.
Is that the period of time, best I remember, when you kissed a girl from Oak Ridge, your lips glowed at night for several years?
Well, this has just happened recently. Because
Okay.
K-25 has been, they're in the process of taking it down, and I may be wrong, but I think they've been about 5 years, I believe, or something. It's been a pretty good while taking it down. But this is runoff that went into the sewer system.
Right.
Okay, it went through the sewer system and into the treatment plant.
Right.
And that's
the treatment plant didn't take it out.
No, because it was water soluble.
Right, yeah.
And what they caught was what came up in the sludge.
Right.
If they hadn't caught it in the sludge, they would have probably never detected it nohow.
Right.
The heavy water reactor will use about 0.7% of the uranium energy value, and the light water reactor will use about half of 1%.
That's what
Yeah.
you need to see.
Just
And
give me a location, and I'll LFTR. Okay, I'll do some research on it. Cause I'm sorry.
I printed over there.
Oh, that's okay. I can look it up if it saves you from doing it, but it's interesting. And if you can print it, that'd be fine too. Because
You got an email?
nope,
Okay.
sure don't. Do good to have a telephone.
Okay.
You know. But anyhow,
Carry on there.
anyhow, this I haven't heard anything out of it lately. But I think there's a whole lot more than the 5,000 gallons. Of course, that was just the first load, and I don't know how many loads there was to be of it or something like that. I can't remember the figures.
Right.
But to me, it's because I guess I don't understand all of the do's and the don'ts about it.
Right.
And the only thing I get is what I read in the newspaper about it, other than what I do research on the computer on it.
Right.
But anyhow, what else would you all want to?
Well,
what
you
about
know, Ronnie, I think, made a fairly something I thought was feasible, but would never happen. Well, you know, back when they were excavating inside that mountain out in, was it?
Is that Utah?
Huh?
Yucca Mountain?
Yucca Mountain,
Yeah.
okay. For a place to store radioactive waste.
Right.
I believe it was Ronnie said, well, why do that? Why don't you go back in that mountain and build a nuclear reactor? Because you bring all your power out by electrical cords, you know.
Right.
They easily enter into the grid system.
Right.
And if that nuclear power plant becomes a problem, you just explode the mountain, collapse it on it, and go build another one back in the mountain.
Whenever you go to blowing things up, it's sometimes it's hard to really figure what the result's going to be. Whenever
Well, you
blow
can
something
collapse, you can implode the mountain.
All you got to do is close the door and leave. It ain't
Yeah.
Well,
That's true.
in a meltdown.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about a different type of reactor. But in a meltdown, when the core of the reactor is so hot that it'll melt through the earth, after it gets to a certain point, if it gets below the water table and it's still melting, it's going to produce steam.
Well, it depends on what. It's probably no hotter than a batholite coming up from a volcano.
Right, that's correct. Yeah, what's coming out of a volcano.
Right.
But, and I don't know how long that it would do that. You know, it would run out of
This isn't
energy
nearly hot
eventually.
enough to generate electricity effectively. So water-cooled reactors have to run it over
They're
70
going down.
atmospheres
Maybe
of pressure. You
the
have to
Chinese will have to start wearing some thick bottom shoes.
Well, now China, not China, but Japan has placed a moratorium on all
The heavy
nuclear
water-
Yeah,
reactors.
but they put some of them back online.
Have they now?
Yeah.
Well, I know they had said they wasn't going to build any more or whatever.
Right.
But anyhow, it's an interesting subject.
Give you this address, say
Yeah. Should be right there on the top. But anyhow,
Well,
what
but
about,
with global warming, so we're not going to need as much heat.
oh yeah, global warming.
This winter, you probably won't even need any heat because of global warming.
Right. Well, as far as energy is concerned, I feel that thermal would be one of the ideal ways to put more research and stuff into thermal. Drill
Well,
them
we've got
wells,
a
drill them
thermal
deep.
belt that runs through most of Tennessee, where there's not all that much drilling. You can go down and bring up boiling water.
That's correct. If you can get water to boil,
They heat all them there hotels and spas over there in Little Rock, Arkansas, with
Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Hot Springs. I said,
Yeah.
Hot Springs. In fact, they've got these here. They used to have these people went there and took these hot baths because they thought the mineral baths because they thought it cured them.
Yeah.
They've got a. You ever been there?
No, huh?
They've got a great big old heat exchanger to cool the water down so it won't scald
So it
the
won't
people
scald
when they
you,
get
yeah.
in it.
Huh? The
I got that address
Okay.
printed out for
Well,
you.
you know, Iceland has a lot of thermal activity. It has a lot of pools and streams in Iceland that flow real hot.
didn't
Yeah.
Iceland have a volcano that was kind of active or
It's
something?
built on a volcano.
Yeah, here, it's been a while back. They was having problems about what they were doing. They were restricting air traffic over it.
Yeah.
That's because there's a ash.
Flume and ash
Yeah.
in the air and whatever.
Tell them about Digger, Bob.
About Digger and his thermal generation activity. Yeah, and if you want to generate some heat, whether it be for heating yourself during global warming or whether it's just to thaw out a steak or a hamburger or a hot dog, if you want it for your grill, you need to go down and see Digger because he's got more flavors of propane than Baskin Robbins has of ice cream. And you're just going down, if you need your Mr. Heater worked on, or you need your big wall heater worked on.
Or your refrigerator.
Right, or you need your refrigerator that's operated off of propane to be worked on. You take it on down and Digger will fix it up. That's down Sawmill Holler, right where Ellison Avenue, and now will have a road sign where it sits right in the middle of Ridner Lane and Ellison, and they've got a big block of Dixie concrete sitting out there to keep everybody from running through Digger's building.
Really?
Yeah,
That's something new?
yeah, they put a stop sign there and they put a big concrete block there to keep everybody from running over the stop sign.
Better wanted to call him. If I could remember his number, I'd tell him what it is. It
I
starts
think
with a
it's
5.
562-5444.
I thought it was 5444.
5444.
5444?
Yeah.
Okay. 562
Right, yeah.
5444.
Right. If you can't get a hold of Digger, dial 562-2676.
And Richard will tell you how to get hold of
Right.
him. What else, fellers?
Yeah. What about, seems like in about 2 days, the decision will be made as to who will be the ruler of the county. Hey, I heard now, of course, I don't know how true it is. A lot of things you don't hear is true, but I heard that the mayor and I don't know what the other one called.
Deputy mayor.
Deputy mayor.
Deputy dog.
That they're going to be on the talk
Again
show.
tonight?
Yeah, but this time they're going to have their telephone and take calls. Is what I'm hearing.
Were you going to be prepared?
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether they take calls from third graders or not. But anyhow,
I wish you'd mention them solar panels and ask them why they had to put it. Just ask them why they're putting them on the roof instead of on the ground.
Well, they said that was to secure them. Ain't a kid out there can throw a rock that high.
Well, no difference. They can put a fence around them.
I know it.
Ladders are cheaper than wire cutters.
Well, why? You're asking a question that there's no answer to. You'd think if you have to put them on the roof, there ain't no spare land in this county.
Yeah.
Around the power
what
line.
gets me is they want you to. I mean, it's common sense. If you want to get the sun, you put it on the roof. But stop and think that you're only getting 20 or 30 feet closer to something that's 93 million miles away. It's just
Well,
absolute insanity.
The whole thing, if it were not for the other ratepayers paying for this thing, it wouldn't fly. That's all
Yeah,
it is
I'd
to
like
it.
somebody to
They
tell
ain't
me
gonna
why.
fly anyhow.
No, it ain't going to.
Well, the people that benefit from it will be out of the loop the time things come crashing down.
Yeah.
Maybe literally. But what gets me, if these things are so effective, why do they have to be subsidized? You don't have to subsidize gasoline.
No.
No, in fact, they add cost to it.
Yes, sir.
The
You don't even have to subsidize whiskey.
Right.
They tax it too.
the mayor of Knox County was approached with this same pitch, and he flat turned it down. He said, "Ain't no way." He done a little research on it, and he wouldn't go for it at all.
We had
No way.
our best and brightest down here to research this, and they declared it was a wonderful thing.
Our best and brightest. That'll be interesting to see. Like after this election.
I predict that the foods in Campbell
That's
County
about like
will put them back in.
this airport security agent. What do you call them?
In the NSA, National
Yeah.
Security Agency.
Whatever it is, the ones that
Air marshals,
check you when you
Oh, yeah.
go through the gates.
right?
And he would not let one guy through security because he had a Washington, District of Columbia driver's license, and
Yeah.
he did not realize that the District of Columbia was in the United
Yeah, I know
States, and told the guy he's going to have to get a passport.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of tells you the guy that said that Guam would capsize. Now this guy was he's a senator.
he pretended like he did it in jest, but he
No,
really
sir,
believed it.
I heard him when he first
I
played
did
the
too.
argument, and the guy was dead serious. He said that Guam would capsize if we increased our naval base on that island.
Was it Sheila Jackson Lee, another congresswoman, that wanted to know if whenever them people went to the moon, if they did send
And,
people to
Mars,
Mars, if
yeah.
they was going to go see if them flags, is
See
there
if
them
them
last
flags
guys
up there.
left?
Yeah, right. Well, this is what we have for leaders, and we're no better off here in this county. If we don't come up with some sort of rule, and I'm talking about something other than an election, to where that we can hold people accountable, to where that, let me put it this way. First of all, what would it hurt? Of course, we're not allowed to speak at a county commission meeting unless we send it in advance as to what we want to talk to the county mayor. That's William Byrd. You've got to put it in writing to him first, and he has the yes or no to say as to whether you're allowed to speak or not on the subject that you choose. He can say yes or no.
All right.
Okay? That gives him some kind of a power that,
Veto power.
yeah, veto power over any subject. Let's say that you wanted to go down there and you wanted to talk about solar panels. All he's got to say is, no, you don't.
Well, I was in line at a fast food restaurant 2 weeks ago, and one of the local candidates asked us. The candidate was drumming up as many votes as possible, and that candidate, she asked this girl taking the order if she voted, and she said, "No, I'm not old enough," and she gave her what I thought was the worst advice she could possibly have done if she really cared about the welfare of the people. She said, "Well, you need to register and vote this as quick as you can. Always vote. You need to vote. Express your opinion." And I don't agree. What she should have said is you should educate yourself and then vote.
Right.
We need educated voters. We don't need people to go out there and vote. I'll get that.
Right. I understand what you're saying. And
You was talking about that there, airplane screeners. We went through the line in Knoxville and then went through in Fort Lauderdale coming back both times. And both times they pulled Sharon aside and swabbed her hands to see if she had some
explosives?
explosives.
Oh, Lord, I tell you.
They didn't. The only thing they done to me was I went in. They told me he was going to pat my pocket. I didn't have nothing in it. He patted my pocket, and coming back and didn't do nothing to me. But they searched her twice.
When they go to pat that pocket, you can't make a joke.
No, I wasn't joking.
If you had said pat it easy there because that thing had safety's off on it.
That's real nice over here in Knoxville.
Yeah.
But, they're country boys too.
Yeah.
But I thought it was funny that I'd never thought about it, but I actually thought about emptying my pistol before I left so I could clean it and start with fresh ammunition. I got back, boy, I'd had a real time.
Yeah. Can you see me trying to get through an airport?
Oh, Lord.
As much metal as I've got in me, if I have to go to the courthouse to go through that metal detector, most of them people know me. You know what they say? I'm on in. Here.
If they don't know what I know, they wouldn't do that.
And They wave.
I went machine gun shooting with you one time.
They wave that wand over me, and I just light up all over. All this metal I'm carrying or whatever. Of course, you can't get rid of it. It's
right. You know, I've mentioned on this program several times that we have no Second Amendment rights in the state of Tennessee.
well,
We have
that's right.
Second Amendment privileges which we pay for. Now, there's no right to bear arms in the state of Tennessee unless you buy a carry permit, because you cannot put ammunition in your gun, whether it's concealed or not concealed, anywhere when you're outside of your home. And that, to me, is the ultimate infringement on the right to bear arms when you can't put no bullets in your gun.
I saw a headline, but I didn't read the article that Washington, D.C. had recently classified pepper spray as the same as a gun.
Right.
That D.C.
Yeah.
There, you heard the ruling where the Supreme Court come down and said that it was constitutional to bear arms, but yet in 2 days later they had it turned around because the police department said they didn't know how to deal with the
an
general
armed
public.
population.
With the
There's a little article in here about Chicago with gun laws stop all the killings there. Now, during the week of July 5th, I believe, they had 14 people killed. They had 200 and some wounded. There were so many gunfights throughout the city that the police couldn't get to one before there was called to the other one. Now, the writer points out, would banning guns help in this situation? And he points out Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. The city, in fact, is a running illustration of the cliche that if you ban guns, only criminals will own them. The real problem is the profound social breakdown of certain neighborhoods where lawlessness is the norm and life is all too cheap. And that's what's happening in Chicago. None of your decent, law-abiding citizens are able to carry guns because they're the only ones that will submit to a background check. Criminals not going to submit to a background check. They're the only ones that will submit to registration of their guns. Criminals not going to register his gun, and they're the only ones, if they are denied a gun permit, won't get a gun.
Well, two things, they're sending them our little kids from Honduras that's escaping gun violence to Chicago.
Right.
And another thing is, I just saw this commercial over for Western Wamp, and I noticed last week that Flashman was really attacking Western Wamp because he was anti-Second Amendment. And I can testify that right over in that floor, the guy dropped a pistol out of his pocket during the interview.
And he just laughed about it.
And he laughed it off and stood up for the Second Amendment. Now,
that's right.
Take that to the store.
Right,
Yeah.
there's a cartoon in here that shows a bunch of kids crowded up at the border to escape all of the gun violence and everything from where they were raised. And they said, well, I guess we're just going to have to send them back to Chicago.
What you
Where'd
talking
you get that book?
on Weston?
A free copy of it sent to me, wanting to know if I wanted to subscribe it.
There's 2 or 3 things that have been taken out of contest. That who's the other guy? Fletchman. That's running
Flashman,
against
yeah.
him. Flashman.
Mhm.
He's taking stuff out of contest and running it. Then that's not fair.
No,
Well, they say he's done it. He has a long history of doing that.
He's
Okay.
fighting dirty and rough
Well,
because he's scared. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking maybe he ought to be.
well, I think he ought to be too. I'm not personally acquainted with him,
Right.
but I have talked to Weston, and he appears to have character and whatever it takes. Now, that don't mean when a person gets there whether they can maintain the level of integrity. But it
It
seems
generally does start degrading
Well,
as soon as the election results come
I
in.
think our politicians, and I tried to give him some backwoods share of some of my opinion of things as to how people get into trouble. But if it comes down to the two, I think Weston has more character than
He seems to
from
have.
talking to him. He seems to have more integrity and more character than this other guy, Fleshman. And you can look at the ads and pretty well tell it. I think Weston is showing a whole lot of restraint
My
by
opinion,
not going back in that manner.
in my opinion, if he don't grow into the political family too much,
Right.
and he's connected politically,
Oh, he is.
and that's the biggest fault I have with him is I'm afraid that he'll be part of the clique. But this other guy is already part of the clique and don't care how he fights. He's
Well,
awful loose for the truth.
I think if Weston, you're putting him in there with 435 other people. If he will, and I consider him to have the character of a leader, if he'll be a leader and persuade or I don't know exactly how to put the exact wording, but to where he can get people to follow him in the right direction. I think he's got the right idea, the right direction, and if he can maintain it and then to influence others to agree with him,
You don't
we'll
think
see
he ought
some
to
change.
do like Obama, lead from the rear?
No,
I
I don't
gotta
think he
say
will. I think
something
he'll lead
else.
from the front.
I'm going to
Anyhow,
say
go
one
ahead.
more thing. If you get to feeling kind of down and figure you might need a ride to the hospital and ain't nobody to take you and you're going to call an ambulance, don't just call anyone. Call that there privately owned one that they won't be charging you twice for, like tax money and them too. Call Vital Care and encourage your friends and neighbors to do the same thing, because they are operating business of people who actually work and earn your trust and earn your business. You can call them at 562-9370. Bob does it every time he drinks rotten mater juice. He calls them 562-9370. 24 hours a day. Now, you can't get no better. I'm not taking away from the county service. I'm just telling you that you can't get any better than Vital Care. 562-9370.
Right, or you can call 911 and tell them you would like for Vital Care to be your carrier.
What he said.
And they're very, very good at what they do. They've been have over 40 years of experience, and it does not cost the taxpayers $1 for you to use their services.
Gentlemen, I'd like to put in another plug. I know you're not. Well, anyhow, Judge Andy Tillman, I think, and I'm not saying nothing bad about the lady, is it Asbury,
Right.
that his opponent there. I'm not saying nothing bad about the lady. But what I'm saying is Judge Andy has got he put common sense on his sign. He's a fellow who has experienced things out here in life that most politicians never have or never will. And that's earning a living and competing in the free market system out here. He's done that, and he's been successful at it, of course. And
If you think operating a sawmill won't make a man out of you, you just try it.
well, also he's employed people and things like that. And whenever you employ people, to a large extent, you take a lot of responsibility for those people. If they've been with you a long time, you've got a responsibility.
Right.
And this is something that you can read about it, but if you don't experience it, if you don't do it, it's a different thing. I don't care what it is, it's different.
He went back to law school after he was in his 30s.
Right.
And you know, I'm going to think about doing it because I already have some my credits toward my law degree. I'm thinking about doing it in my 80s.
There you go.
You know?
Absolutely.
You think you can get in law school?
Well, yeah, I can get in.
Well,
I'll go with you if you get me in.
Okay, you'll get both. I think both of us can get in, no problem.
Why don't we just do that and we'll sue the hell out of everybody?
there you go. We keep the
We'll order concrete first.
tie all the judicial system up.
I've thought about it. I started to go when I was 31 and decided not to and didn't, and I don't regret that, but I don't know whether I don't know whether my memory's sharp enough now to do
I
it.
don't know how it is here in Tennessee, but I had a good friend who went down and worked in a law office and took the law examination and passed it and got his
I don't believe they'll let you do that now.
in Tennessee.
Yeah, in most states, I think, because
They
lawyers
do in North Carolina.
now.
Yeah,
Well, let's go over and get it.
Yeah, transfer it
We'll
to
sue
Tennessee.
them over there.
right.
Well, there's one other.
May have more money to pay. It wouldn't be everything would
I tell
be
you
pro
what, Bob,
bono.
if you'll go back, I'll go back too.
Okay, I'm gonna check. Does
We get one of them there.
Lincoln University, doesn't LMU have a law school now?
Yeah, but I don't know whether they're accredited or not.
Well, if they'll get me from the bar examination, I could pass it right now.
Well, I'd say you've had a lot of experience in front of bars.
Yeah, both kinds.
That's right. They say how many drinks before you're in
He's had experience in
inebriated.
front of bars and behind them too.
Well, fellas, I was going. Also, the people in the 4th district here, I think Ralph Grant would make them a good county commissioner.
Well, I don't know that guy, but you
Well,
told me he got educated.
Yeah, he got educated all right, but he's.
Well, I can remember when he was hanging around bad companions.
Yeah, he was keeping some bad company a long time ago, but I think the bad company tempted to get him involved in it also, but he wouldn't get involved in it. Now I think he informed them if they tried again that he'd deal with them.
Right.
But
Our buddy says the reason he never became a lawyer was that he couldn't pass a bar.
Yep.
yeah, not exam a bar, right? Well, anyhow,
Neil
gentlemen.
Bortz never finished college, I don't think.
I don't think he did either. I
But he
believe he
went-
told me he
but-
didn't.
But
I
he
told
went,
it.
We went to law school
Yeah.
and got his lawyer's license.
Right.
Gentlemen, if we could,
I don't want to law nobody but just my enemies.
if this would be a real innovation or a move, if you had an exam out there, let's say like a bar exam, no matter if you hadn't gone to any university, no big name or anything, but you had studied on your own and could pass that exam, why not?
Well, it used to be that way, but
Well-
I think it's closed now.
Well, it's a money thing now.
Yeah.
You got to have all that stuff. And this is one of the things I think holds our country back. My experience is in truck driving. Whenever I started driving commercial when I was 18-year-old, now you can't do it as far as interstate. You got to be 21 and whatever. And by the time when you're 18-year-old or when you're 16,
If you're like me, you're driving, you're 12.
well, and I was driving before that.
Yeah,
I was
me
driving
too.
before that, but I had to sneak.
Well, I had
But-
to do some sneaking at 9.
I done some sneaking and done it. But your reflexes are much faster when you're 16, 17, 18-year-old.
But your
than,
judgment ain't as good.
No, your judgment's not as good, but your reflexes are. And I done a lot of things back then that I ain't no way I do them now. There's a lot of
And you
excitement.
couldn't pull them off either.
I probably couldn't pull them off. We did things just for the excitement of it.
You
And-
quite like crossing one up on a icy road.
Oh yeah, I've done that. Used to cross them up. And a wet road. There used to be a place out here on Toe String that the road had bled through, and when it would rain,
Yeah.
oh, you could go out there and cross one up. You could just go round and round out there on
I
that.
used to have a little old pickup truck. I'd throw the rear end out to one
Yeah,
side,
and
and I'd go up the road with the rear end over there and
Yeah.
be driving
Have
up.
you ever shifted reaching down through the floor and getting the
Oh,
labor?
I can tell you things. Of course,
But-
it's just useless trivia, but it could get you killed. That's all there is to
Right.
it. But yet we never thought nothing about it. We just, it was
Right.
all in fun. The things we did.
I
But
know,
you
I was going to
the other
North Carolina. I was going to North Carolina. I had a crew cab diesel. Had a 18-foot trailer behind me, and it was clear roads, but we hit an icy bridge, and that thing crossed up. And I went this way, and I got her back. She went a little too far. Got her this
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Then
Oh.
I brought her right back and took her on. I never said nothing about it, and I looked over. All them people were in the floorboard. They were scared to death.
But that's hard to do right there. Whenever one starts out on you, is to try not to over control.
Right,
You got to
that's what I
catch
did.
it at the right
I did
spot.
just a little bit on that first deal, you know.
But boy, if it ever gets traction, it'll go fast
got
like
it.
you wouldn't believe.
Close her down, fellas.
Okay, gentlemen, you pull the plug on it.
Yeah, folks, we're about ready to get out of here. Are we all?
Not yet.
Okay.
Didn't you tell them we're gone? But we're leaving right now.
Right.
Thank you, folks. Don't forget Saturday on the radio, and there's a possibility, if I understand this right, that you can get us in two places on the radio dial Saturday at 100.9 and
Yeah.
1450. That's
Right.
FM.
FM.
1450 AM plus WLF 1450 WLF on the
internet.
or at UG TV. We're just covering
We
up
just
the
everywhere.
spectrum.
Right now, we're going to be all over the place.